Good day. The Queen is dead. 12 days of mourning in Jamaica. Desmond Richards looks back at what the monarch allowed, supported, or did against our people. Crystal Cameron considers the sacrifices some people make for the right things and for better, and then they see the fruits of their labor being given away to others. A policeman speaks truth to the St Ann Municipal Corporation, and another leads the push to bring back order to Montego Bay, St. James. All these and more are issues for the 38th episode of the Frankly Speaking Jamaica podcast. Let's begin with the police. Senior Superintendent acting in charge of the St. Ann Police, David White, went to the St. Ann Municipal Corporation, SAMC, on Thursday last and spoke straight and true. I've been going to parish councils, now municipal corporation meetings all over this country for years, and I've never heard a police officer of any rank, without quarreling, just tell the council to cut the foolishness and do their work. And SSP White gave examples of how the disorder on the streets of Ocho Rios, the breaking of the law allowed by the council, actually got in the way of crime fighting. But before that, let's acknowledge something else. Nearly 4 weeks ago, a senior police officer in St. James, Superintendent Aaron Samuels, after weeks of organizing, announced Operation Restore Paradise, what he called a public order reset. Things had just gone too far, he said, and there has been a buy-in from several state organizations that themselves should never have allowed things to become like that, and also a buy-in to some extent by an extremely weak St. James Municipal Corporation. Superintendent Samuels has set about with diligence to help make the sidewalks and piazzas free of vendors and displays of products from foods to shoes and clothing. He has set about keeping Sam Sharp Square free and clear, a deserved honor for the hero, as for the people who use the area. He has removed random illegal parking spaces created sometimes at dangerous intersections by taxi and bus operators. And he has reduced the stop anywhere, load anywhere practice. Reduced, not ended it. And he has cleared some of the congestion on the streets. Still, today, in the face of much more orderly, less congested western capital of Montego Bay, some people who live there and use the streets every day can't believe what they are seeing. And others, knowing that similar efforts have been made in the past, and then see the place sink back into nastiness and chaos. Some of them are saying cynically, just wait a little bit. But there are those who are supporting Superintendent Samuels and the police, and who believe Montego Bay could offer a template for pulling back our towns and other central places from the morass into which they have slowly, unrelentingly, perniciously slipped. Frankly speaking, what acting senior superintendent David White said at the St. Ann Municipal Corporation meeting last Thursday could be spoken with the same relevance at almost every other council across the country. Senior Superintendent White said, "It's straight. Disorder and lawlessness breed criminality. In his words, wherever you have problems with public order, crime is always on the increase." His focus, frankly speaking, was street vending, the collapse of public order, and the unmitigated spread of vending on the sidewalks, on plazas, on the streets of Ocho Rios and Brownstown, the parish's two busiest towns. Here he is speaking to the council.
Now, we're having some serious challenges in the Ocho Rios town. where persons are on the street side and on the sidewalk and say they are given permission. Given permission. And have papers saying that the parish council give them those permission. Then why is it that, I don't know the plazas, there's a plaza close to the gas station where the people just string out along that road, that area there. We have been following in that town a specific issue going on in the town that we really wanted now. But we were prevented by vendors in some key areas that if we were allowed free movement and have a clearance in those areas, in those townships, we would be better off in nabbing some key individual coming in the town. And therefore, we are unfortunate. They must go in the market. The market is at the gate. Do not keep them in the market. We can monitor in the market. Leave the town free for pedestrian and for other persons who is willing to utilize. And we will be able to control traffic much better in the town of Portugal. I'm going up to Brownstone, it's almost the same problem. Persons are given the opportunity to wholesale in some specific place, and it is only for a period of time. But after that, they are there for the entire day. And so we move in, as you said, cat and mouse, same problem. We need to clear the town and stick to the parish council. And you cannot have a lot of these, everybody building up. They build up shops, they build up everything all over the sidewalks and corners. Those things breed criminals, that deteriorate, that decay of a community and a township if we don't allow, and therefore we must enforce those guys. Must look over it. Municipal police, we utilize them as much as we can, and they are on the operation many times to assist. But I get a drawback from municipal police too. It's like they want to and they are hesitating. And I say, why hesitating? Possibly they think somebody may lose their job. Now when it is, we need to make sure that law enforcement, parish council, and all the entities come together as one and to make sure our township is clear.
That's Senior Superintendent David White. Now, to Desmond Richards, speaking on his set at his internet radio station, Rebel Radio, Jamaica.
As a member of the global human family, I take no pleasure in the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. But how could I forget the role the monarchy played in the greatest and most brutal transgression against black people in the history of the human race? How could I forget that? I am talking about the Atlantic slave trade. That is what I am talking about. How could I forget that? I can think of several ways how the oppressive predecessors and successors of the monarch benefited from the blood, sweat, and tears of black people. Yes, how could I forget? The white vampire regime was central to the establishment, expansion, and maintenance of the Atlantic slave trade. Charles II formed the Royal African Company. Let us not forget that, in 1660, which looted the Gold Coast, extracting tons of gold, silver, and ivory, and shipped 3,000 black people to Barbados. How can I forget that? How can we forget that? The Commonwealth is an organization established to preserve the bloodsuckers' prestige and influence as they continue plundering and exploiting the resources of the downtrodden and poor and powerless globally. The British exploiters remain head of state in 15 Commonwealth countries, including Jamaica, while 1 million black poor Jamaicans, sons and daughters of ex-slaves, are still powerless and singing God Save the Queen. How can we forget that? As we speak, properties looted by the Royal African Company are stored at Buckingham Palace. How can we forget that? We were beaten and broken by slavery. And even today, the scars that remain of that human tragedy are like wounds affecting our social, political, and economic souls. How can we forget that? How can we forget that? This is not a time for mourning. The Jamaican government has declared 12 days of mourning while the British government declared 10. Are we more loyal to the Queen? This is no time for mourning. It is time for us to fight. Fight for reparation. And I call on the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition to step up the speed, step up the race to cut Jamaica's navel string from the British monarchy. The Queen is dead and we will not welcome the King. Time for justice. Justice for 300 years of slavery. The poor man, I feel it.
That's journalist and founder of Rebel Radio, Jamaica, Desmond Richards. Now, here is Crystal Cameron, creative and businesswoman.
Try and imagine that you're a child again. Let's say a 10, 11-year-old child, girl child, named Crystal Cameron even. Let's work with that. And let's say that you're a conscientious child. You're an observant child. You look around and you observe certain suffering around you and you realize that there are certain decisions that bear out those sufferings. And you make a vow that you're not going to make those decisions that don't bear out the good ends that you want. You decide, for example, that you're not going to have children out of wedlock because it doesn't seem to bear great fruit for the people you see doing it. You decide, for example, that you're going to take your studies seriously because that's what bears good fruits for the people who you see do that. You decide that you're not going to get overindulged in the partying or being overly sexual or trying to be popular because ultimately being successful at the end of the day is what's more important. Imagine that child grows into a woman who lives by those vows. Imagine that you open a business, graphic design and printing, hard work, however, it's bearing you some fruit and you're able to now have some of the things that you never had before. With that said, imagine then wanting children, not having them because you realize you can't afford them on your own and you can't find a spouse who you trust not to run off and leave you to raise them by yourself. And again, that's the sufferation that you observe, the same sufferation you decided that you were never going to take onto yourself. And then imagine how you would feel when you read something like this. But let's consider for a moment the single mother on minimum wage or worse, unemployed. She has multiple children to send to school, even allowing for limited social help available through state-run initiatives like the PATH program. How does that single mother cope? She must suck salt through a wooden spoon as best she can to help her children. If Jamaicans and their leaders had a clear-cut modern vision for education, crises such as children missing school because of collapsed bridge and or because their parents are too poor to buy books, uniform, pay bus fare, etc. would be resolved as a matter of urgent national necessity. Whoever wrote this on The Observer, I just want to know what portion of your salary are you willing to pledge monthly in order to help the single mothers who can't send their children back to school comfortably. You see, the bridge collapse situation, this is another story. And the bridge collapse, I'm willing to pitch in on that. I'm willing to contribute towards that. In fact, I already do. I pay my tax money. Money that the government spends to help people and do all of these things. It's not coming from the government. It's coming from us, you and me, regular people. When they're building houses for poor people, that is our tax money. Me and you, regular people who can't even afford to buy their own houses. That is what's going on in the background. So I say this, how would you feel as that little girl when they came and explained to you that the decisions that you made to decide your future, you would be punished for them so that people who made the opposite decisions can be rewarded out of your finances?
That's creative and businesswoman of Crystal Cameron Designs, Crystal Cameron. And now to the end game. A people without knowledge of their history. A man without confidence in himself. Marcus Garvey. How many days of mourning were there for him? It was a different time, of course. And who is celebrating his increasing relevance? Nelson Mandela. How many days of mourning did Jamaica have for him? Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and more recently, even Michael Manley and Edward Seaga. How many days for them? But 12 days of mourning for the Queen of England? I do not take joy in the death of any man or woman. My own shared humanity prevents me from doing so. But Jamaica doesn't have to make itself a puppy show. India declared 1 day of mourning, England 10. And we had to do them and all the others. But I'm going to use the 12 days looking for what action or words were said by Queen Elizabeth II in contrition or apology over the worst evil in the history of mankind, the enslavement of African people. 20 million of whom died either being transported here and other places in this region or while working on plantations to make Britain rich. I'm going to go research where and when the Queen denounced or even acknowledged the excesses of slavery and colonialism, parts of which predated her, to the brutishness against the Maumau in Kenya in the early years of her reign. I'm going to do the research over these long 12 days of mourning. And I beg of you one thing. We shouldn't be so stupid as to let this too divide us, to turn our sentiments into a tracing match and bad mind against each other, dividing us even more. We have a shared history. That's Frankly Speaking Jamaica podcast for the week, episode number 38. Please like, share, and subscribe. Remember, we want to know what you think about the issues raised here and the positions expressed. Please place your comment on the channel. Until then, I'm Franklin McKnight.